We've seen some monsters too. I mean, I remember one at Kafui we saw, and it heard us come. It was probably 25 or 30 meters from the actual river in a little estuary, little swampy area they call a dambo. So it's in this dambo. And man, it just started going through the vegetation like wild, just thrashing and making all kinds of noise. And you couldn't really see it, you just saw where it went, and then it came out, and it looked like literally probably 4 meters or 5 meters long. It was the biggest thing I
Wow.
think I've seen. Then it just gets into the river and disappears, and you're like, that thing's in there.
Jeff de Graffenried, backpacking and conservation in Africa.
You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Curt Linville.
Hey, if Africa has ever called to you the way that it has always called to me, then you're going to love this episode. One thing I want to point out, though, is we had this conversation, Jeff and I, 6 or 8 weeks ago. So if you think about the timing of that, turns out that Jeff was working for USAID in Africa, and he was packing up to come home because USAID had been dissolved. And we try not to be political on this at all. This is really about Africa, the beauty of the place, the people, the animals, conservation, and backpacking through it all. But it's kind of unique for the Adventure Sports Podcast to talk to someone that has experience like Jeff's. So you're going to love this one. I'm going to call this Insights into Africa. Hey friends, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast again today. This is going to be such a unique episode. I have Jeff de Graffenried with us, and Jeff is a Foreign Service Officer for USAID in Africa. I believe he's are you in Zambia right now, Jeff?
Malawi
Malawi
Next
right now.
door.
Okay, so you visited Zambia and other places, but anyway, you're in Malawi right now. And what Jeff has done is a series of hikes through national parks and conservation areas, and in Africa, backpacking. I'm just super interested in what it would be like to backpack in a place like that. But Jeff has a lot to say about conservation and a unique perspective on the world. So, Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Curt. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're happy to have you. So you are in Malawi right now. It's 11 o'clock Colorado time. So does that make it about close to midnight your time?
That's not quite that bad. It's 7 o'clock, 10 after.
Okay. So not quite that far east. Well, thank you very much for coming on the Adventure Sports Podcast and sharing with us. I mean, when people think of adventure, most of our programming it focuses around adventures that we have in the United States. But when people think of Africa, I mean, it just sounds adventurous, just from the get-go, right? But you've made a life caring for the people and the countries in Africa, the land. How long have you been there, Jeff?
So I've been in Africa, I think total of about 10 years. I'm a Foreign Service Officer with the United States government. I work for the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID. In Malawi now. I've been serving here 4.5 years, about 4.5 years or so. I served in Zambia before that. In the Foreign Service, we do tours. So a tour, very similar to the military, is a 2-year tour. So for mine, I'm a 2-tour officer in Malawi. So we're here to serve at least 4 years. And I've done 2-year tours at all my stops. 16 years into, on September 13th or 12th, I'll be 16 years with USAID, and have done multiple tours, one in Mexico, Bangladesh, and Zambia, and now Malawi. 3 different continents, which has been very exciting. And we've been here
Wow.
about 10 years.
You know what, Jeff? Let's address the elephant in the room. And I kind of chuckle when I use that statement because it really could be an elephant in your room. but usually we don't. Anyway, I'm not going to beat that one. The elephant in the room is USAID. And, we're not a political program, so we're not going to dive into politics. But what is happening politically in the United States is impacting you personally. So address that, just because people are going to want to know.
Well, certainly, Curt, as you mentioned, it is addressing me personally. I mean, USAID has been essentially dissolved. My last day here is September 2nd, not just here, but in USAID. My last day here is actually Saturday. Yesterday and today, we've been packing our furniture, and packing out is the term used. So the movers are here, and we've been running all over the house, packing stuff up. And if you could see, I'm surrounded by a canyon of boxes right now. So this is truly
Wow.
a box canyon. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult times. We do great work. We've done great work. Really proud of what we do, the development, how we and values out across the world through our development efforts. It's a tremendous program. It's 63 years, 64 years now with USAID, and have done tremendous things all over the world. So, very proud to serve our country. I'm very proud to be part of the U.S. government, and sorry to change lifestyles. It's unfortunate, but we serve at the pleasure of the president. So.
Well, I appreciate your stiff upper lip. You have a good attitude about it, at least with me right now. And it's easy enough to say that any organization, and that when it gets big enough, is going to have positives and negatives and pros and cons. And it people can view it one way or another, and the media is going to take it and run with it. But you have boots on the ground experience, doing a lot of good, representing the United States and helping all of these places around the world. And I just want to say thank you for your service.
Appreciate that. That is greatly appreciated, and I'm sure all the USAID employees listening appreciate that too, because we do make a sacrifice. I think it's one of those agencies that does not. It's under the radar. We're overseas. We don't have a constituency at home. We work closely with Congress. Congress gives us our money. Almost all our money is what we call earmarked, so it's highly directed to do certain things, which we do. We figure out how to do these. Right now, my programming, I was the office director for the Sustainable Economic Growth Office here in Malawi. We had roughly about an $80 million per year, covering environment, energy, agriculture, and humanitarian assistance. So, we were the folks that helped during hurricanes that came through, or what they call cyclones here. So when Cyclone Freddy comes through and floods out and destroys large parts of the country, we respond. When there's droughts and there's food insecurity, we respond. We put America's best values forward across the world to see, and we provide a seat at the table for the government to be able to talk with our other governments around the world. When you are there on the ground, participating, helping the country, helping the people, you have an open door with the host government, and we have good relationships with most of the countries that we work with. So it's really a good value for the small amount of money that's spent. I mean, most people, some of the polls that have been done on this indicate that most folks in the U.S. think that you spend 20, maybe 15, 20% of the U.S. federal budget on foreign development. And reality is USAID's like 0.03%. It's less than 1% of the budget. So that's overall foreign development. So that's split between all of the agencies working overseas. You have U.S. Forest Service, Geological Society. I mean, yeah, you have the Department of State, you have all kinds, every Department of Justice, all these other agencies also working overseas that are part of that less than 1%. But most people think it's as high as 20 or 25%. So for a
Yeah,
value, we gave a lot of value for that little.
sure. Well, in building relationships with the people and the governments of other countries, I mean, that's just mission critical. If the world's going to ever be a peaceful place, we've got to be able to have those relations.
Well, 100%. It's like living in your neighborhood. If you don't know your neighbors, you're not going to get along with them, right? You need to know who they are. Back when I grew up, we all the kids knew each other. We played together. We ran up and down the streets together. You know what's good and what's bad, and the parents got along. They could talk. If the kids got in a fight, the parents could chat about it, right? Because they
Right.
know each other. Same in world geopolitics. If there's a problem, if you're not there, you don't have a seat at the table. It's really hard
Mm,
to come in and say, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something," when you're not even there.
right.
So you when we walk out of here, we create a giant void. We're the biggest development donor, international donor in Malawi, and so who's gonna fill the voids when we walk out? There's one country that's looking to do that, and they are already coming in and taking advantage of the situation. So I get it. Everything can be improved, and there's good and bads about everything, specifically government. It's an easy area to say we can improve how our government operates. It's a giant bureaucracy, and I don't think anybody would say it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Um, but we do good work, and you have to be there to be able to help solve problems, create allies, stabilize countries that can rapidly spin into turmoil and create some of the problems that we've experienced at home in the past. So, um, you know, yeah, that's it.
Well, let's talk about some of these adventures that you've had in Africa that have given you this unique perspective on what the African continent is about. And very, very few people probably have a grasp on that. Three, you've done more than this, but three that you listed, and correct my pronunciation, but you did a backpacking trip through the Kafu National Park in Zambia to promote wildlife conservation. A similar trip through South Luangwa National Park in Zambia, and then also Majeti Wildlife Refuge. I don't know what country that one was in,
It's
but
Malawi.
Malawi. Okay, so here's my thought about this, Jeff. Backpacking with lions and backpacking with other predators, and then the really dangerous animals like hippos and crocodiles aren't anything to, you don't want to swim with them too much. I mean, most people don't have to worry about that. Here in the United States, in some places, there might be a grizzly or two to look out for, but Africa is a different place. What is that like?
I mean, to me,
It's a
it's
wide
it's
open question.
yeah, it is, but it's so much fun. Really enjoy it. But you're right. All of these places, every one you mentioned, Kafue National Park in Zambia is a massive park. It's as big as Massachusetts. And then if you include the game management areas and the other parks around it, it's like the size of Belgium. So it's a
Mm,
massive park. It's been around for a long time, and they have all kinds of animals there. I mean, you mentioned a few, right? But they have, I think, 150 species of mammal, something like that. Over 500 types of birds, reptiles, fish. I think there's like close to 100 different types of reptiles, 70 different types of reptiles, close to 60 types of fish, amphibians, etc. So there's stuff around you, but really it's hard. It's a hard experience because in Africa you have you're on a different hemisphere. But two, the climates are different than what we're used to at home. We're used to a four-season year, not and usually getting rainfall every month. Sometimes you get more than others, depending on where you live in the United States. I'm from the southeast, Alabama, so we get a lot of rain there all the time. I think October is the dry month with 2 inches of rain. Some parts of Africa don't get 2 inches of rain all year.
Wow.
But we have dry seasons that here in Malawi, the dry season starts about April, May, and goes to traditionally about December. But with climate change and the way variations are happening now, it seems to be pushing even further. So you have quite a large portion of the year that's actually dry. So there's different types of things that you have to prepare for as you go on a hiking trip, a multi-day trip across a wilderness area the size of a Kafue or any of the parks that you mentioned. They're quite large, right? And there are dangerous animals all over. And the one animal that you didn't mention that I think is really the most dangerous out of all of them is us.
Yeah.
We are the most dangerous. My colleagues here, they go, "Ooh, you're afraid. You aren't you afraid?" I'm like, when you go out into the bush on foot, it's much different than in a vehicle and a
Yes.
mobile safari. Which my wife and I, we're all over the place. We love overlanding and we love seeing the countryside, and we've gone on some real epic road trips, which are so much fun. But on a safari in a vehicle, lions will sit right next to your car in the shade, and they're not too worried
Right.
about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you see them, or an Ellie will come up and look right at you. On foot, they see you, hear you, smell you long before you see them, usually. And so they give you plenty of respect and move out of the way, because when they see people on the ground, historically, it hasn't been good for them.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so they move on, right? I mean, if you look at which species is increasing in numbers and which are decreasing in numbers, you kind of get a picture of the story there. But um, you definitely have to be careful. Everyone I go on these national parks or reserve, you have to go with a ranger or two rangers or more. On the jetty, I just went out with a ranger patrol by myself, and we spent 6 days just walking through the bush. But I had three, four rangers with me at all times. That's their normal number. They didn't increase it because of me. They just let me go
Yeah.
on what they considered an extended range. So that was exciting. You get to see things in the natural habitat. You get to see things that aren't expecting you to be there. We walked up on rhinoceros one time
Oh, wow.
and got a glimpse of rhinos in the wild, like that, which is extremely exciting. But as you mentioned, hippos, you're walking through grass that can be 3, 4 meters high, and you may be following a hippo trail or an ellie trail, and so you don't have a great field of vision. And what you don't want to do is get between a hippopotamus and water. The hippo is going to make a beeline straight for the water, and you don't want to be there. You want to be on the other side of that hippo.
Well, I tell you, it's so amazing. Most of our listeners are in the United States because we're an English speaking podcast, but we have a huge audience, of course, in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, but lots of places where English is a predominant language, and people listen from all over the world because English is the second language for so many. But I guess what I'm getting at is we're a little bit North America centric, and I'm having a hard time imagining what it's like to backpack through Africa and the sorts of things that you would see. I mean, you mentioned the rhinoceros and the hippo challenges and all that kind of stuff, but I'm thinking about different types of vegetations. I'm thinking about lizards that we would never have here, birds we would never have here, things that you'd be like, oh, never thought of that. I mean, can you relate some of that to us? The Adventure Sports Podcast has a new sponsor, Infinite Epigenetics. Now, I've turned down a lot of sponsors, actually, because I'm pretty picky about the sorts of things that I want to promote to my friends, you, the Adventure Sports Podcast family. So when Infinite Epigenetics popped up as a possibility, I looked into it a little bit. I was like, what exactly is this? Now, I knew what epigenetics is. That is, epi means top, right? It's kind of like epidermis, the top layer of your skin. Epigenetics is about gene expression that changes how your body works without changing the underlying DNA, and it can even be passed on from generation to generation. What I find fascinating is that your epigenetics are kind of experientially triggered. This means you can actually alter your gene expression. Matter of fact, what you eat, how you sleep, how you move, the supplements you take, even how you manage your stress, it acts like an on-off switch for your genes. That means that your health isn't anchored or fixed in just one way. You can actually change it, and Infinite tells you exactly how. The way this works is you get a kit, you put a tiny little blood sample in it, and you ship it back to them, and they're going to measure 105 health markers. Things like vitamins, cholesterol, metabolism, amino acids, stress markers, immune system health. It's more comprehensive than any single doctor's visit. You don't have to go to a lab. You just test from the comfort of your home. Additionally, epigenetics can predict your risk for some of the top 5 chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease. It gives you a personalized plan to help to prevent them based on your own DNA. This is super cool. You've heard me talk about how adventure sports make us healthier because we're outside, motivated to move and to do tough things. It makes our bodies stronger. I love the concept that we can actually reprogram our gene expression. We can get the epigenetics to move from a less healthy gene expression to a healthier gene expression based on lifestyle. And Infinite Epigenetics is here to help you do that. And here's how it works. There's an app that comes with this that will build a personalized 90-day plan to help you lower your disease risk, improve your health, even perhaps slow your aging. And it offers advice about workouts, food, sleep, supplements, all these sorts of things. And you can retest every quarter to watch your numbers improve. Most people find out about disease after it's too late, right? And this is huge because Infinite Epigenetics can help you to look forward and see how you're trending. This is a brand new product. They're still in waitlist mode with thousands of people waiting, but you can skip the wait and lock in founder pricing with my code. Go to infiniteepigenetics.com/ASP and use code ASP to save $150 per test for your entire first year. That's infiniteepigenetics.com/ASP, code ASP. Skip the line, save $150 per test, and start taking control of your health right now. Live infinitely with Infinite Epigenetics. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show.
Yeah, for sure. One, all these trips are through the bush. There's not an established trail system. So our house is in North Carolina. When we go back to the U.S., we'll go back to the Appalachian Mountains and enjoy great trail systems. The Benton MacKay Trail, the Appalachian Trail. I can walk out my front door and be at a trail very quickly and connect and literally walk all over the United States if I wanted to, and come back and walk right back in my front door. That's a rarity here. When we go out, we just try to create a route that we want to go based on the topography, based on as we want to see, our knowledge of the area, relying on experts that know the area much better than I do. And then we go out, and it's through the bush. So it's a bushwhacking trip. Quite often, as I mentioned earlier, you're walking through grass that's 3 or 4 meters high. You're walking through what's called a Miambo forest. So a Miambo forest is one of the great ecosystems in the world. It's a grass, kind of semi-deciduous hardwood ecosystem. that is well established for the type of climates that are in this part of Africa. And extremely slow growing trees, very hard wood.
Mm.
The acacia tree, the classic African acacia tree with the flat top, you'll see those in some places, and then you see others with fruits, really tasty fruits that you can eat, wild figs, or ones that, let's say, elephants like. So they'll go to the marula tree and eat the marula fruit, especially after it's been on the ground fermenting a little bit. They have a day at the bar and head to the marula tree, and have a fun evening. Some of their friends, maybe put on a rugby game, watch a little rugby, eating the marula.
I just can't imagine a drunk elephant, Jeff. That's that's
Yeah, that's what they do. It's funny, really funny. Um, Yeah, so animals like you're talking about lizards. Sure, you have monitor lizards, which can get quite big. You have very poisonous snakes, cobras, black mambas, adders, different types of snakes depending on where you are. But you also have crocodiles.
yes.
That's the interesting part. Most of the trails in the U.S. are not in, at least even in alligator territory, right? So if you do the Florida Trail, at least you're walking through an area with alligators. But alligators aren't the same as crocodiles. Crocodiles will
Right.
eat you, and they'll eat you quickly.
Well, what
So
about the river crossings then? Let's talk about that.
you have to be really careful, and it's not even the river crossing. Let's say that you're going to go get some water. Where do you get your water? Well, you got to go down to where there's water. I mean, and this is
Right.
quite interesting because you see this with animals. The crocodile will sit quite often right out where the animals come down to get water, and you'll see their eyes pop up, and you can see them waiting, right, for that careless one that'll come down there, and they can take advantage of, or fish or whatever they're going to eat. But uh,
Sure.
there's no fooling around. You have to be on you have to have your alert system highly tuned. The batteries are energized and ready to go.
Wow.
We've seen some monsters too. I mean, I remember one at Kafui we saw, and it just reminded me of a National Geographic show. Is a monster. We had come up to it. It heard us come. It was probably 25 or 30 meters from the actual river in a little estuary, little swampy area they call a dambo. So it's in this dambo that's connected to the river. And man, it just started going through the vegetation like wild, just thrashing and making all kinds of noise. And you couldn't really see it; you just saw where it went, and then it came out, and it looked like, I mean, it was literally probably 4 meters or 5 meters long. It was the biggest thing I think
Wow.
I've seen. And then it just gets into the river and disappears, and you're like, that thing's in there. You don't
Yes.
see it, but it's in there. I don't get in the water too often, intentionally. One is those
Right.
kind of things, but two, sometimes there's diseases in the water, bilharzia or schistosomiasis, some of these things. But there's a lake in Zambia that's on the Zambezi River, and people will go out and get a big houseboat and have a great time out on the lake. You can have a chef, you just have a big time. But behind the houseboat, they'll have a cage, and you can go swimming in the cage because it's safe.
Oh,
Don't go swimming outside the cage.
it's like a shark cage. That's
Exactly.
amazing.
There you go.
Wow. It's interesting to me to think about what it would be like. I keep on returning to that, but
I just
there's
love the
so
animals.
many animals in Africa that I know so little about. And when you don't have knowledge, then that not only is it terrifying to not know, but it also exposes you to unnecessary risk. How long does it take to start to understand the bush enough to feel like you can navigate it somewhat safely?
Well, risk management is important in whatever you do, where especially in backpacking, I do a lot of stuff by myself because there's just not a lot of other people out here doing a lot of backpacking. The industry is very new. There are some beautiful places like Mount Melange where they have guides and some trails, but the backpacking industry is not there. So you end up, for me, I ended up going to places like this, but you have to manage the risk. It's real. Whether it's twisting your ankle out in the bush somewhere, how are you going to get out, or a worse situation like we were just talking about. Um, I think it comes with time and studying of the environment. So, we've mentioned elephants a few times. I find elephants extremely fascinating. And if you just sit and watch an elephant, they're just amazing creatures. And they're so smart and so loving and so caring, but so big and so forceful.
Right.
Um, you really do have to pay attention to what they're doing, and that only comes with time and study. You can read about them. There's books that provide insight on various characteristics and how animals behave, and always going out with someone who's more knowledgeable than me. It's really great to be with other folks that have spent their life doing this. We mentioned Kafui. When I did Kafui, it was a fundraiser for a conservation organization and a camp called Musakesi Camp, Musakesi Conservation, in the northern part of Kafui. And Phil Jeffries and Tyrone McKeith, friends of mine from Zambia, run that and have been very successful with that and other adventures. But they grew up in this part of the world. Their parents know stuff. Phil's dad, Richard, also grew up in the bush back in the day, right? So back in the
Sure.
50s, when or 40s or whenever, there was a different culture here for sure, and there were much fewer people and much more wildlife. And so you learn how to read particular animals, you know how to read signs, where to go. For example, we got into one particular ecosystem. It was short scrub brush with high grass, close to a river, but not very close. And Phil, stopped us when we were there and said, this is buffalo territory. We have to be on alert for
Mm.
buffalo because buffaloes are, they're quite dangerous and can be quite aggressive um, if they feel threatened. So we wanted to be able to minimize any kind of risk there. And so we were paying attention, but understanding that particular ecosystem, where you are, what's likely to be there. So this time of year, it's very dry. So when you get to any kind of a water source, even a dry riverbed, we might walk up to a riverbed and go, oh, there's no water here. But in reality, if you dig down a little bit, you may get water, and elephants are very good at that. So you'll see where they've come into the riverbeds and have dug a watering hole for themselves. So you get to these places and you are on alert. You're paying attention to where you are, what's around you, what the topography is, where the drainage systems are. What do you hear? Just being, I think quite often we have lost so much of our intuition in nature because of the lifestyles we live, that we really don't have a lot of the innate knowledge that we probably had at one time. And listening is one of those where you can just sit and listen, sit still for a while and listen to nature around you, and you'll learn what birds are around. Are they making any noise? Do you hear something in the distance? What is that? Is that one animal or a different animal? They can sound very similar. You can get them confused if you're not familiar with them. So where do you want to put your tent at night? Or like quite often we don't use tents. We just cowboy camp because we know it's not going to rain, and it can be fairly warm, but you just lay on the ground. Where do you want to do that? Is it on top of a hill? Are you going to dry camp and have to carry your water 10 kilometers, or do you want to be closer to a water source? If you do, how close do you want to be? Where's a safe spot? So I think looking at the environment as you get there, making these judgments on what's a safe space, what do you expect to be there? Are you in an area that's loaded with elephants? Well, you may want to camp a little differently than you do otherwise. Leopards. Some of these, like people are, they all deserve massive respect, but quite often they don't want to be around you. Animals are a bit afraid of human beings. So I think they keep their distance. But yeah, we
You
could
know,
we could
there's
talk about that kind of stuff for a long time.
oh yeah, there's one animal that's perhaps some people say the most dangerous animal to humans. You said humans are the most dangerous, and you're right. But the one that's most dangerous to humans, I think, surprises people. And in Africa, I mean, there's so much of it. That's the mosquito, right? What
Totally.
about malaria? What about vector-borne illnesses? You know?
Yeah, that's a real one. Malaria is endemic to Malawi, endemic to this part of the world, and unfortunately, I've gotten malaria a number of times. And it's a serious disease. It's a massive killer. It's one of the biggest killers, as you mentioned. And there's ways of kind of preventing yourself from getting malaria, depending on how long. If you're going for a short-term trip, perhaps you want to take one of the prophylactics that's out there, Malarone. There's other ones that are out there. Here we're given Malarone and told to take it. Some people do, some people don't, because whatever their belief system is, maybe they're here for a long time and they don't want to take a drug for a long period of time, but then maybe they really don't want to get malaria, so they take it. Other people test quite often, but one thing is interesting, because I've had malaria, I think, 3 times now, is
Mm,
that if you get it here, they can quickly identify it and quickly give you the medicine to be on the road to recovery, right? But if you
okay.
go home, they're not used to malaria, and there's a high probability of them not dying of malaria. I experienced
Right.
this in a trip to Scotland. I did the Great Outdoor Challenge, which is an annual hiking adventure from where you hike from the west side of Scotland to the east side of Scotland. And you select your own route and you make it, you have to do it within 2 weeks, but you can do whatever route you want. And so I planned this. My wife and I went over to Scotland. We had a nice introductory tour of Scotland, seeing some of the beautiful areas there, taking train rides, eating seafood, um, visiting a few of the local distilleries, and just had a great time. And then we set off, and she joined me for my first couple of days of hiking, and then on the third day, she caught a train and flew back. She had to get back for work, and I had taken 2 weeks off. And so on the fourth day, I started feeling a little wimpy, etc. And she
Mm,
said, "Look, dude, you got malaria." I don't have malaria. I don't feel like that. I had it before, and it felt differently. And it was very tricky. But I continued on, and I hiked 170 miles with malaria. And
oh my goodness.
finally, by the grace of God and of the kindness of a local farmer, we went in and started talking, and he called the paramedics and came and got me and took me to a hospital, which was a teaching hospital. And because it was a teaching hospital and they actually had someone from India who knew,
Right.
they could treat it. And once they started treating me, I got well really quickly. But there was a day or so where they weren't sure what I had. What's wrong with this guy? Heat exhaustion? Is he dehydrated? What's the
Oh
problem?
man.
Yeah, so it is. It's a tricky one, and if you don't get to it quickly, it can be deadly for sure. Lots of
Yeah.
lots of stories of people dying with malaria, especially children. It's one of the biggest killers in Africa, in the world.
Well, so many years ago when I was in Kenya, I saw people that had malaria that went untreated or wasn't treated in time. And I was asking some of the locals, what is this? And I said, oh, that's malaria. And it was tragic what it does to people. Just tragic.
It's
Really, really
it's quite
difficult
interesting.
illness.
People have it's endemic, right? I mean, they have a high parasite count all the time. And
Right.
even here, we have, the security here at my house. The guards will come in and somebody will be sick, and I said, "Well, what happened?" "Oh, they got malaria. It's malaria because it happens, right? And it happens
Yeah, we say, oh, we
frequently.
have the cold, but malaria is way worse.
Oh, it's way worse. It's way
Yeah.
worse.
What are I don't want to spend too much time on this, but what are the efforts that are taking place to try to do something about malaria in Africa?
Well, that's a great question. And here, I mean, going back to USAID, we had a huge malaria program. We spent millions and millions of dollars on various programs helping to educate people on malaria, help with childhood malaria, distribute bed nets to areas that were prone to
Mm.
malaria around waterways. Lake Malawi is a huge lake. You know, I forget exactly how long. It's like 500 miles long and 70
Wow.
miles wide, 2,000 feet deep. So it's one of the biggest lakes around. But with the rivers that flow into that, a lot of those areas are malaria prone, and so we work with those areas to eradicate malaria, right? To treat it, to get the drugs out to people, get bed nets out to people, which bed nets surprisingly do a lot to mitigate the impact or the occurrence of malaria. Because if you put it around your bed at night, you're not, and you use it properly, you're not going to get bit by an infected mosquito. Um, so those are kind of programs that are out there, but without USAID funding, those programs aren't happening. We fund other places, and other programs model their efforts after the U.S. government. With us pulling back, that impacts all these other programs as well. So it'll take years before we really see the impact of us moving out. But it's harsh because without those programs, malaria, certainly the incidence of malaria, I feel certain will go up.
Hmm. Well, another big challenge in Africa, of course, is habitat. Um, I really have mixed feelings from my visits. Um, I, I love the people of Africa. I absolutely love the people. Wonderful, wonderful people. And when people don't have as much opportunity as can be the case in places in Africa, then they have to lean into the environment more and more for survival. And I think um, that can be a real threat, actually, to the habitat that allows all this biodiversity that you were talking about, magnificent biodiversity that we have nowhere else on Earth. No other place, has what Africa has. I know that you've probably done a lot to preserve habitat. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Man, you hit the nail right on the head, really, especially here in Malawi. So Malawi is an extremely poor country. It's about fourth or fifth poorest in the world, depending on what you look at and when you look at it. But the pressure on the ecosystem and natural resources is immense. You have
Mm,
rapid population growth. I mean, Malawi has I think 22 million people right now, and expecting to be by 2030, 2040, it'll double. So you're going to have a doubling in population, in the next 15 years or so. Man, what where do the resources come from? Because right now, people heat their homes, they cook their food, all using wood products,
yeah,
biofuels, right? Mainly
sure.
wood or charcoal made from wood. And all that is coming from illegal deforestation across the country. You see people on bicycles carrying bags of charcoal too wide, stacked 2 high, maybe 3 high, so 5 to 6 bags, huge bags of charcoal on their bike. It's a very difficult living to bring it into town, to sell it, and it'll be broken into smaller pieces and sold across the town. But that's how people are making a living. That's how they're heating their homes.
Right.
Firewood is everywhere you go. You see that because there's no alternative. Some of our programming in the past has been to provide alternatives, help create businesses that provide alternatives to charcoal. So work with the forestry department to improve their ability to manage forests, to use technology to measure forest growth more accurately, come up with better forestry rules and regulations, these kind of things. But there's a lot of people and they all need energy. If you couldn't go in your kitchen and turn on the stove, what would you do? If you can't heat your house,
It's your family at stake.
your family, you. I mean, Maslow was onto something with his hierarchy of needs. I mean, he knew, he kind of had a clue of what was going on there. So the pressure on wood resources in this country, and not just here but everywhere, is intense. Malawi, the game parks I've talked about they're all protected, right? They're an identified area, but the national parks, a lot of them have fences around them because the pressure is right up to the boundary. So I think the pressure isn't real, and what really has to happen is people have to understand the value of these resources and what a park brings to them. That it's not just a reserve for trees to be cut down and hauled off and turned into charcoal. By protecting the resources in these particular areas, it brings value into their lives. That's an educational process. But once people understand that, it's like anything. If you value something, you're going to take care of it. And sometimes it's not straightforward. Maybe to us it is because we have a different environment that we grow up in. The environmental is different. We have an education system, and even just the nurturing system that we have is different than what is in other countries. So to help a community understand the value of a protected area is really critical. I'll give you an example. One place I'm familiar with, Kasungu National Park here in Malawi, the pressure was right up against the park. Cutting trees, poaching animals, doing all this, right? Battles between the rangers and the community members, encroachment, illegally selling pieces of the park or whatever. So there was this conflict all the time. We came in and put in a fence. A fence was built along that boundary. The chiefs of the communities really appreciated that because it defined the park boundary, and we also helped them have jobs. So when you put in the fence, hire local people that give them a job, right?
Right.
Create opportunities to come in and get the resources they need, but in a managed way. We put in solar systems. We gave them other jobs associated with tailoring or whatever. But they realized that by protecting the farm, by protecting the park, it helped them. It provides them with resources, sustainable, long-lasting resources, water, because the thing that's missing here is that when you denude an area of all its resources, what happens with water? You have a real problem with rainfall. Rainfall patterns change. We're in this part of the world, we experience much longer, severe and more severe droughts. When the rains come, they're more intense. I think you're seeing a lot of that in the United States as well. These incredibly intense sudden downpours. And tropical rain is more intense anyway than rainfall outside of the tropics. So it's even worse. Then the landscape itself can't absorb any of the water that's coming down. So what happens? It runs off, it doesn't absorb. You create flooding situations, topsoil's lost, so you've exacerbated this problem even more, right? So now you have no topsoil, you can't plant your primary crop, whether that's maize or some other crop. You flooded the dambos or the wetlands with another meter of soil, so now the dambo's impacted. The water quality is poor, so the aquatic wildlife suffers. It's this chain reaction of
It
events
just
that
keeps
have
on
happened
going.
because you're not protecting that. Some of that comes back to enforcement and corruption. Does the government have the willpower to protect its natural resources and understand the value that it gives to its citizens? I mean, we experience that in the United States with our national forests. Because we protect the national forests, we can go out and use them. You're a bike rider, you can go and ride
Yeah.
through these national forests because they're there and they're protected, right? I'm a hiker, I'm a mountain bike rider, same. If we've learned the value of that through time, and so now we're advocates for the protection of these areas. You have multi-use areas, so you can satisfy different needs for different folks, but we're advocates for the protection of these type of environments because they bring value to our lives. The same here. You just have to help communities understand the value of these areas for their life. What is it that brings value to them? And that's a difficult chore. It's an uphill battle because people are living day to day. I mean, it's a very impoverished area, and so when you have you don't have a buffer to last for 2 months, right? You're worried about tomorrow. How am I going to get food tomorrow? How am I going to make it to next week or next month? I'm not worried about retirement at 65. I'm worried about next week. So to
Yeah,
them,
and then
it's
worried
a
about my
very
kids.
yeah, my kids definitely. That's a drive. Your kids. How are you going to feed your kids? What are they going to do? How are they going to move forward? So all of this is about developing these economies so that they could be more self-sufficient and have an economic driver behind them that benefits the people that are there.
Well, Jeff, correct me where I'm wrong here, but it seems that agrarian societies or even hunter-gatherer societies, they lean heavily on the land, and as population increases, well, we know what happens. There's only so much land, right? And around the world, we've seen that when there's opportunity to live a different way and people can adopt that, then the stress is removed from the land, so to speak. Um, Not only that, but when people have opportunity and they have good medical care and such as that, then generally the birth rate drops for countries because let's face it, many people in societies like this, they have a lot of kids because they need someone to care for them when they're older, and they don't know how many of their own children will survive to be able to even do that. It's a numbers game. They also need more help working the fields, gathering the whatever is necessary for day-to-day existence. And so kids are a huge help and resource for the family. But as people have the opportunity, oh, you mean so half my children are not going to die? They're all going to survive now because we know what to do about malaria. We know what to do about these childhood diseases and cholera and all these things. So the birth rates drop to something more like the replacement birth rate. And then you have less of the population explosion, and you get more of a sustainable culture. It protects the natural environments, but it also is better for the people. And it seems like the common denominator, and this is where I want your opinion, it's opportunity. It's a chance to do something in a different way that's beneficial. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think you really said it quite well. I mean, all the points that you raise are very valid. Obviously, it depends on where you're talking about, but yes, I have to say yes. With more people, land tenure is a big issue in large parts of the world because of the reasons you just mentioned. If the example I use in conversation here is that let's say your grandfather had 100 hectares, right? He has 5 boys. Okay, the next generation, your father, he inherited maybe 25 hectares. Okay, great.
Yes.
So he has 25 hectares. His father had 100 hectares. Now he has 5 boys, and he's down to what, 5 hectares? So in 2 generations, you've gone from being able to work a 100 hectare farm to a 5 hectare farm. And now you have 5 kids, so
And you
in
can't
just a
live
few
off of it anymore.
generations, you go from where you're actually working 1% of the property that your relatives worked before that. It's tough. Farming's tough. Even the best farmer will tell you it's a tough business, right? So, but making a living, eking a living out of a 1 acre or a half a hectare, for most people, I think hectares about 2.3 acres, something like that. And so it's very hard to eke a living for a family of whatever number on a small piece of property. It can be done. There was a guy I used to work with, John Jevons. He does biointensive agriculture out of California. And in his trial plots, he actually worked on 1,000 square foot plot to try to grow the amount of calories one person would need. But it's very, very difficult. I mean, holy
Yeah, that's
cow!
rough.
And you gotta realize that most of these places grow a primary crop. Between Zambia and here, Kenya is the same. You've been to Kenya. They grow maize. They grow corn. From the English bringing corn over 150 years ago, it has taken hold, and it is the primary crop. Local people don't consider having eaten a meal until they've had maize. Here it's called sema. So if you haven't had your sema, you haven't had a meal. Now, you may have eaten other things, but it wasn't a meal. So if you're doing food surveys, it's quite interesting because you'll ask them, have you had a meal? No. Oh, really? Have you eaten anything? Yes, I ate some greens and I ate some peanuts and I ate whatever else, but I didn't have my sema. And it's not food
Right.
unless I eat sema.
In Kenya, it's ugali, right?
Yeah,
Or and they eat
same
it with
though,
sukuma wiki, which is collard greens. And
is the
I have to
green.
tell you, I'm a huge fan. I love ugali and sukuma wiki. I think it's so good. I get
Well,
it.
it's
That's a
quite
meal for
interesting.
me.
Yeah, you see a lot of the parallels. I mean, I'm from the southern part of the U.S., and you see a lot of the foods
It's
that
like
actually
grits.
come. Grits, yeah, for sure. Okra. Okra is an African food. It came over with the slaves, right? So peas and greens and okra and a lot of this stuff, you see a lot of commonality about what people eat this
Mm,
way. But yeah, it's tough, being very poor in a society that doesn't, they're struggling for day-to-day existence. It's a hard way to live. So working to try to give people opportunity to get to the point where you were talking about, where you can maybe reach replacement age. You can educate your children. What they find is when women are educated, the birth rate does drop. So the more educated people get, the way they can adjust their lifestyles accordingly.
mm.
But at the same time, you have to have opportunities. And some of these nonprofits that we were talking about, really, that's what they try to do. Whether it's Africa Parks, so we're talking about Majeti. Majeti has over 100,000 people that live around the park. So they have huge programs with these communities so that they don't apply pressure to the park, right? They don't want poachers in there. They don't want somebody breaking down their fence to cut their trees or kill their elephants or whatever it is. They want to help these communities thrive and survive because if they're doing well, that's less pressure on the park. Now it's quite interesting because some of these programs, if from the beginning, if the conservation program is successful, they want to pump money back into the local economy to help the local economy. Well, that can have unintended consequences because you all of a sudden the school system may improve, the health system may improve, maybe the roads are getting better, etc. Right? Those are all good things, right? But that community could also be right on the edge of your protected area. So now you've created this community with all these wonderful amenities, and people in other areas
It's a
want
magnet.
those amenities. So
Right.
now you have a really growing community in a very unfortunate place. So
Right.
sometimes you have to look at this and say, okay, what are the consequences of success here? Are these the unintended negative consequences of success? Maybe we didn't plan this or think this through enough. We should have thought about maybe investing our money 20 kilometers away or 50 kilometers away or in this other area so that they could grow and they could be more prosperous so that it doesn't put the pressure directly on these conservation areas, which makes
Right.
success even harder.
Wow. There's so much to this. It goes deep.
It's complicated. I mean, you think about. I mean, we're talking about education. It's very interesting. How many variables go into educating a child? You think about it. It's just getting your son or daughter up and getting them out the door and getting them to school, right?
Yeah.
But what if your bridge is out? It's been washed away by a storm, and that child can't get to school. Not even talking about the curriculum or the quality of teachers or whatever, but so that kid can't get to school. What if you have a daughter and they don't have the right facilities at the school, and it makes it very difficult for her to go to school, or they don't have books? One story I can tell you is that when I was in Zambia, we were working with an implementing partner who was building a schoolhouse in a very, very remote community in the South Luangwa National Park, or right, not in it, but adjacent to it. And we had to drive several hours, and we walked. We got in a canoe and canoed down a river, and walked some more and canoed some more, and eventually we got to this community. And what was there was a cement slab with a steel infrastructure or a superstructure with a roof. So you had a roof, a tin roof, some iron beams, and a concrete floor. And that's their school since 1969.
Right. Mm.
So that's what people, right? I mean, think about it. These
56
kids are
years.
trying to learn in this environment, rain, cold, whatever. Now try to get a teacher to go there. What do you do? Where do you put your books? Do you have books? What do you do? So a 2-room schoolhouse was built with a central office. That made all the difference in the world, and a bathroom. And they were going to build new teachers' homes there. Now this very remote, undesirable place, who had a community that was extremely highly motivated, became a very desirable place to go teach, because you have a community that
Yes.
supports you, you have a facility there, you have maybe a new house, you can actually bring your family and live on the site. So with just a simple, small construction project and some tools, some books, and some things, nothing fancy, there was no lights or anything there. Um, you've changed the whole situation 180 degrees, right? Now that's a community again on the edge of a national park. So now you have this community. These kids are getting educated in different things, maybe even in learning how to guide, maybe getting some environmental education, learning about the value of trees, learning about the value of wildlife, clean water, etc. That this whole community depends on, right? So you depend on clean water. Got to have water. Can you get water out of the river, or is it too dirty? Is it healthy? What's happening?
Yeah.
Do you have sustainably? Can you start helping them grow let's say a woodlot, a sustainable woodlot that you can sustainably harvest over a period of time, so that you're not stealing wood or cutting wood illegally in other areas, or invading the park to cut wood out of the park. So you have a sustainable woodlot there. I mean, there's ways of doing this, but one little change can make a big difference in a community like that. growing
I mean,
crops.
it sure seems the things, Jeff, that we take for granted so often. The first top two, I would say, right? Clean, affordable energy, clean, drinkable water. Those two things completely change the equation. Completely
And I
change the
think
equation.
water,
And
we
we take
take
those for
water.
granted in the
Oh,
United States,
100%.
You
100%.
know?
I mean, we get up at home, right? You get up and turn the faucet on, make a cup of coffee or whatever it is, take a
Right.
shower, maybe take 2 showers in the day. You don't
Right.
even think about it.
You drink the
Some,
water without
if you
concerns
had to,
about cholera.
well, Kurt, if you had to get up and put 5 gallons of water on your head and carry
Right.
it 2 miles every day, you would conserve that water.
Absolutely. In my visit to a community in Kenya, their water source, if there wasn't enough rain, they captured rain off the rooftops. But if there wasn't enough rain, then it was about a mile hike down a very, very, very steep hill and to a muddy creek that was very, very questionable. I mean, I did not want to drink it, you know? And they would have to go down there and then carry that back up the hill, and that was their family's water for the day. And you bet they didn't waste it.
Yeah,
So
pretty much. So
it's remarkable.
I just did a hike across a forest reserve here called Tuma, and it's on the Rift Valley escarpment, not far from Lake Malawi. But there, the pressure is immense. It's not too far from Lilongwe, which is the capital city of Malawi, and there's another town on the lake called Salima. So these urban centers are a driver for illegal wood, but then you also have the communities around there, which are growing. So you see a lot of pressure on this park, even though the guards and the Wildlife Action Group, which is run by a wonderful lady, Lynn Clifford. She's an Irish woman, a very fiery, passionate Irish woman, as you'd expect. But even though they're doing great work, you see the pressure there, and part of that
Yeah.
reserve had been completely denuded 7, 8 years ago, and then as we were walking through it, you could see how just natural regeneration had let it come back, right? So just leaving nature alone, it will recover pretty quickly. But if you keep the pressure on it, it'll just get to a point where it can't come back, and then you have a bad
Yes.
situation. But you really, walking across that, it's just a stunning landscape on the escarpment. It's on the eastern escarpment of the Great Rift Valley, right? So this is an active rift. The world is separating right there. It's super cool.
Mm,
And the land, the views and the landscape is just tremendous. But without constant protection, all of that would disappear, right?
yeah.
Our ability to self-regulate is very minimal. And in some cultures, it may be better than others, but in these cultures, it's quite interesting how um, their idea of property and ownership and community is much different than ours. And so you have to take that into consideration when you're in these areas too. But Lynn, in this particular case, she has extremely good relationships with the communities around there, and so if there's a problem, they try to work it out. But you have to show value of this particular area for the communities to want to try to save it. Why should they? It's all
Right.
about today. So why shouldn't I get what I can today? I'll worry about tomorrow.
Mm. Well, Jeff, we've actually burned up our time, and I would like to talk to you for hours more. I find it also fascinating. There's so much good work that we could do around the world, not just Africa. But I just want to say it to the listeners out there, if you haven't considered how valuable affordable energy and clean water are, and what a difference that could make, not just for the people of an area, but the way that takes the pressure off the land as well, so that we can preserve a heritage for our children and their children and the children's children in these remarkable, remarkable places. Give that some more thought. These aren't difficult problems to solve, but they require intentionality and a concerted effort. We know how to do it. We just don't have the resources together in one place to do it. And Jeff, will you leave us with an experience that you had in one of these beautiful national parks? Something that impacted you that you think might be meaningful for others so they can understand a little bit more about how wonderful the natural environments are?
Sure. Uh, I'm happy to, Kurt. That's a nice question to be asked because, in these, on my trips across these different protected areas, there's always something so beautiful, uh, so surprising about it, whether it's the people, as you mentioned earlier, and the warm generosity that you find and the real loving nature of human beings and places. I'm just always astounded at how great people can be. But just, well, I think one of the things that, gosh, and I have so many that are flooding my mind. I'm just thinking of maybe in Kafue when I was walking across Kafue. The first place we went to was uh, Matumbo. It's the highest point. It's not real high. Kafue is very flat. It's some of the oldest world we have, and you climb up this extremely rugged knife's edge ridge, and you get to the top, and we put a drone up to get a sight, and you just look across this vast expanse, and you realize once again just how small you are and how
Mm.
beautiful these areas are. And if you change your perspective just a little bit, it really can change everything, your view. I mean, it sounds silly, but change your perspective, change your viewpoint. But it does, because you can just alter the way you see something, and it changes the way you think and you feel and you understand where you are. And I was blown away by that, because you realize how vast that particular area is, how beautiful it is, and how insignificant but how significant we all are at the same time. And what it made me really proud to be trying to raise money. That was a fundraiser. I was trying to raise about $30,000 for Musa Casey. But you realize how worthwhile those efforts are. And I think one person being passionate enough can make a difference in what they do. And you have to have intentionality. You have to really want it and have a drive to do this. So I think maybe that's it. I could probably go on and talk about. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Jeff, for sharing a little bit of your world with us. And, it's maybe it's a little flippant of me to wish you all the best when you're under such pressure with USAID being dissolved. But I know that you're going to continue to make a positive impact on your world. I can see that in your heart, and I appreciate what you've done. And thank you for sharing your stories with us today.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on the show. As I mentioned earlier, you bring me a lot of joy every day. When I get up, I put a podcast on, walk to work, and enjoy that, and it's quite uplifting. So thank you very much for sharing your time with me. And I'm really looking forward to going back to North Carolina and seeing what the next chapter is there. I got a CDT hike planned for next May, and maybe some shakeout hikes before that. So, life is fun. You got to make it, take it for all it's worth.
Well, hey, the CDT goes through our valley, so
All
if
right,
you happen to be in the neighborhood, we need to get together.
count on it. I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'll let you
All
know.
right. Well, thanks again. And for all the
Well, you have to
listeners
get
out
your
there,
backpack and come join me, though, Kurt. That's the only caveat there.
yeah, that would be great. That would be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. For all the listeners out there, thank you for your time today. And, this is a little bit different sort of an episode, but I think it was super meaningful, and it's so fun to hear about what other parts of the world are like too. So until the next show, please get out there and have some fun.